Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. It's a beautiful day here in Tokyo, a beautiful June day. Nice and warm and sunny and quite beautiful, but it started out quite rainy this morning and dark, and I didn't think that it would be a good day to go out and do anything. I got up to take the dog out for a walk and saw all the rain outside and decided, we'll just stay inside and I'll do some work indoors and some cleaning and all of that. But a couple of hours later, the rain disappeared and the clouds blew away, and now it's a wonderful day. I'm sitting at Aoyama Park, and so long as I've been here this morning, I'm the only person. I guess a lot of people saw the weather this morning and decided to change their plans. And most people who come here are not people from Tokyo. They're usually people from the outlying areas. And when they change their plans, they tend not to change them later in the day, because getting on the train and all that to come to Tokyo takes a little bit of planning and such. The park here is quite beautiful, and the Tokyo National Art Center is finally open for business, and we have some people wandering in and out to take a look at the most current exhibit. The most current exhibit, I believe, is Tokyo Fashion from 1945 till the present day. It's not exactly a popular exhibit for the local people, because people who live in Tokyo already know what the fashion was like over that period of time. The exhibit was designed mainly for foreign visitors who were coming for the Olympics this summer, which unfortunately are postponed until next year. So not a lot of people are coming to the museum. I come to the museum quite frequently. I don't often look at the exhibits, but I do come here because it's a quiet place to relax and have a coffee and do a little bit of reading and whatever. If it's really hot in the summer, it's nice and cool on the inside. If it's really cold in the winter, it's nice and warm on the inside. And also it's kind of a shortcut. If I'm out shopping around Shinjuku or that area, which is an area I like to visit from time to time, if I'm walking back along, say, Nishi or Gaien Nishidori, I live over by Gaien Higashidori, and when the museum is open, the access road which runs through the museum is kind of a shortcut between these two streets. And it's a wonderful walk up the hill, which is covered with trees, and a beautiful place to enjoy the architecture. One of the best walks in Tokyo. If the museum is closed, I kind of have to go through the tunnel which runs underneath the helipad at Hardy Barracks, which is usually full of taxis and trucks stopped, where the taxi drivers and truck drivers are waiting for their calls, and they're asleep or playing with their phones or whatever. And it's pretty smelly with car exhaust and all that there, so it's not a place I like to go through if I can avoid it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on today's video. And today's video is one I've been meaning to make for a long time, but haven't been able to yet because I haven't had one of these cameras. And this camera, of course, is the Pentax MX 35mm SLR camera. The Pentax MX was released in 1975 or 1976, and it was the Pentax response to the Olympus OM series, which had taken off and was becoming quite popular. When the Olympus OM series was released, there weren't a lot of people or competitors who thought it would succeed, I guess, because no one else seemed to bother to make a compact, lightweight, pro-level camera. And Pentax was the only one to come up with one which I would say was a good competitor to the OM series. When I look at the Pentax MX and I compare it to the OM series, it's quite similar in the weight and layout and handling. It looks like there's a little bit more distance between the back and the lens mount, and perhaps the MX is a little bit less wide than the OM one. I'm just doing this, because I've used the OM one I'm just kind of making guesstimates here. But yeah, very similar in design. And like the OM1, the Pentax system came with a really good collection of high-quality lenses. The K-mount lenses are quite plentiful and inexpensive, like the OM series are, and feature superb optics. And one thing I like about the OM series lenses and the Pentax lenses, they're quite easy to clean out to the surface if they require it. The control layout on the Pentax MX is more conventional than the OM one. It's very similar to Pentax's earlier cameras and also Canon and Nikon cameras. On the top, on the side here, of course, we have the film rewind knob, very similar to earlier Pentax cameras. We have a hot shoe to mount a flash, and there's a red X located on the front, which is to remind you to set the shutter speed to the X sync speed, which is 1/60th of a second. The Pentax MX, like the Olympus OM1, features a fully mechanical shutter, which allows you to operate the camera if the battery goes dead and you can't find a replacement. In the MX, the battery is only required to operate the light meter, just like as in the OM1. To adjust the film speed, you look at the little window on the top of the shutter speed dial. You depress this chrome button, and then you turn the collar on the shutter speed dial until the number in the window matches the film speed of the film you have loaded inside the camera. Next to that, we have the shutter button with a locking collar to prevent you from accidentally tripping the shutter if you are trying to fish the camera out of the bag or whatever. And then we have the film winding and shutter charging lever. Interesting note for those of you who are thinking of doing work on your Pentax MX camera, if you're going to remove the top cover, remember that this screw over the film winding lever is reverse threaded, so you have to turn it clockwise to remove the screw, not counterclockwise. I'm often a little hesitant to buy these cameras to fix up and resell because a significant percentage of them in the past have had these screws turned off the wrong way, which breaks them off, and then I find out that whoever repaired the camera crazy glued the lever and the screw back on. And these screws are quite hard to find, replacements are quite hard to find, and you have to drill out the shaft and all that to replace it. It's a real pain. Removing the top cover on these cameras is remarkably easy. You just remove this screw. I set the shutter speed to B, and I set the film speed to the lowest speed it'll go to, which is ISO 32. That gives you access to the 3 screws. You just remove those, lift this off, remove the film winding lever, and remove the screws around the top cover, remove the film rewind lever. The top cover lifts off, and that allows you to clean any dust out of the prism and under the eyepiece and all of that. Moving to the front of the camera, we have a self-timer lever, and self-timer release button is located underneath the lever. On the side here, we have a couple of flash sync ports, which will allow you to add attach a normal flash sync cable, or more than one flash if you're a cool feature for more modern photographers, is to use more than one flash. And here we have the release button, which you push down to remove the lens. To mount the lens, you'll see a red mark located on the front of the lens flange, and a red mark located, or orange mark located on the lens itself. Line up these 2 marks and set the lens inside, and just twist it clockwise until it locks into place. On the back here, this is the standard back, which accepts a film card, which you remove from the top of a box of film to allow you to remember what kind of film you have loaded inside the camera. A couple of data backs were produced for the Pentax MX, which would allow you to imprint the date and I think time when the photo was taken. These require batteries to work in the MX. On the bottom here, we have a couple of covers. This cover here you have to remove when you are attaching the motor drive. Pentax made a MX specific motor drive for the MX camera. You can't use the other motor drives which were used for the ME or ME Super, such like that. Each camera required its own motor drive. This is the battery cover. The Pentax MX uses standard LR44 or SR44 batteries. It requires 2 of them. These are quite easy to find and inexpensive. I recommend using the SR44 batteries. They tend to last longer and give better performance. And over here we have the electrical contacts for the motor drive. The Pentax MX features interchangeable focusing screens. So by pushing down the lever here, the door pops down and you can add different focusing screens. If I remember correctly, you can use the focusing screens for from the Pentax LX inside the MX. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, I think sometime in the past I had to get a screen for an MX, and I used an LX screen because I couldn't find one for the MX. I got an MX camera to shoot for myself some years ago, and I really enjoyed it. And I had a couple of lenses for it, and then I decided to sell it because I had quite a large, and I still have quite a large OM kit. My OM4 tie body and an old M1 with a pretty good collection of lenses, and it seemed kind of redundant to have 2 compact SLR cameras and 2 different collections of lenses. So I let the Pentax MX camera go with the lenses I had for it. And I actually sold it for quite a bit of money. I was surprised how popular that these cameras are. That was back in the day when I first got into selling cameras. The Pentax MX is usually found in the chrome finish, but it was also produced in a black finish, like this one here. And when I got this camera, I previously had a black one, and it was used quite a bit, and the paint was worn off of it a lot, and it had a lot of like lovely brassing around the corners and around the top of the prism. But then I look at this one, and I notice that it's not brass underneath, but a nickel finish is showing. And it turns out that Pentax, like Olympus, when they produced their black models, there were two variations. I find some Olympus black paint cameras are simply black painted chrome cameras, whereas the MX cameras are black painted over the nickel finish. The nickel holds the paint better than chrome does. When you rub off the paint on the chrome cameras, it tends to come off on chips, whereas on the nickel plated cameras, the chrome seems to, or the paint adheres better. That's also a thing which I've noticed with old Canon cameras. The Canon 7 was black paint over brass on the black paint models, and the Canon P, the original black paint models, was black paint over nickel. If you have a Canon P and you have brassing around the corners, it's not really an original black paint Canon P, because all the original ones were black paint over nickel, not over brass. There are quite a few people here in Japan who are painting or repainting cameras, and they remove the chrome plating to allow, and expose the brass, and then they paint the black paint over it because it adheres good to brass, and also when the camera wears, it leaves a nice brassy finish. Back in 2000, what was that? Maybe 2012 or so, 2013, Pentax introduced an MX Digital, which was very similar to based on the same, I guess, design as the MX film camera. And the black paint versions had brass top and bottom covers, and the display models they had at the camera shops, they had rubbed the paint off the corners to show that it was brass underneath, and they said that it would wear down to the brass finish like the original ones, except, as you can see, not all the original black paint cameras were brass. So anyway, I'm about out of time. I've got to go back and walk the dog. I'm sure he's waiting for me impatiently. I hope you enjoyed the video about the Pentax MX camera. If you have any questions about the Pentax MX or comments, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. This particular Pentax MX with its 35mm f2.8 Pentax M lens I will be listing soon on my Etsy and eBay stores. Please check the description below the video for links to my stores. Please subscribe if you're interested in seeing more videos about vintage Japanese cameras or videos about photography in Japan. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.